I pulled into my driveway at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. The house was dark except for the porch light. My daughter had locked my wife in the basement for 5 days. Let me back up. My name is Richard Patterson. I'm 63 years old, a retired attorney from Portland, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I knew my family. I thought I understood the people I'd raised, the values I'd instilled, the boundaries that held us together. I was wrong about all of it. My wife Helen is 61. We've been married for 38 years. She's a retired elementary school teacher, the kind of woman who remembers every student's name decades later, who bakes cookies for the neighbors, who volunteers at the library on Tuesdays. She has early-stage Parkinson's disease, diagnosed 18 months ago. Her tremors are mild, manageable with medication. She's still independent, still herself, just a little slower, a little more tired. Our daughter Emily is 34. She was always the ambitious one, the driven one. Stanford undergrad, MBA from Wharton, married to Derek Chen, a software engineer at a tech startup. They live in Seattle, or they did. 3 months ago, Emily announced they were moving back to Portland. She said she wanted to be closer to family, wanted to help take care of her mother. She said Derek could work remotely. She said they'd found a great house, just 15 minutes away. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why a successful marketing executive would suddenly abandon her career trajectory. I should have noticed the tension in Derek's jaw when Emily talked about their finances. But I didn't. I was just grateful to have my daughter nearby, grateful she cared enough to come home. That was my first mistake. I left for a legal conference in Chicago on Saturday morning. It was a 5-day event, something I'd committed to months earlier. Helen encouraged me to go. I'll be fine, she said. Emily's coming over every day to check on me. We'll have a girls' week. She smiled when she said it, that smile that still makes me forget I'm getting old. I kissed her goodbye at 6 a.m. The Uber was waiting. I remember she was wearing her blue bathrobe, the one I bought her for Christmas. I remember thinking she looked tired. I remember not thinking much of it at all. I called her that evening from my hotel room. No answer. I texted, "Hey sweetheart, just landed." "How's your day?" No response. I called Emily. She picked up on the third ring. "Dad, hey." "Mom's fine. She's actually napping right now. You know how tired she gets in the evenings. Can you have her call me when she wakes up?" "Of course. Don't worry. We had a great day together." Something in her voice was off, but I couldn't place it. A tightness, maybe. A forced cheerfulness. I told myself it was just the phone connection. Sunday morning. Still no response from Helen. I called again. Emily answered her phone immediately. "Dad, seriously, Mom's okay. She's just been really tired. I think she might be coming down with something. She asked me to let you know she's resting and doesn't want to worry you. Let me talk to her. She's sleeping right now. I just checked on her 20 minutes ago. Wake her up. I want to hear her voice." A pause. Then, "Dad, don't you trust me? I'm taking care of her. She's fine. You're at your conference. Just focus on that." The thing about being an attorney for 35 years is you develop an instinct for when someone's lying. It's in the pauses, the defensive tone, the way they answer questions you didn't ask. Emily was lying. I just didn't know about what yet. "I'm calling the house phone," I said. "The phone's unplugged. We've been getting spam calls and it was disrupting Mom's sleep. Plug it back in. Dad, you're being paranoid. Plug the phone back in, Emily, or I'm calling the police for a wellness check." Another pause. Longer this time. Then she said, very quietly, "Fine. I'll plug it in. But you're overreacting." She hung up. I called the house 15 minutes later. It rang and rang. No answer. I called Emily back. Voicemail. I called Derek. Voicemail. I called our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, an 80-year-old widow who lived next door and had known our family for 20 years. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Richard Patterson. I'm out of town and I can't reach Helen. Have you seen her recently?" "Oh, hello, Richard." "No, I haven't seen Helen since Friday morning. She was getting the mail. Emily's car has been there every day, though, so I assumed everything was fine." "Emily's been there every day?" "Yes, her car's there right now, actually. I saw it this morning." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat on the hotel bed and stared at my phone for 3 minutes, running through scenarios. Helen's phone was dead. Simple explanation. She forgot to charge it. But then why wasn't she answering the house phone? Emily said she'd plug it in. Had she? Or had she lied about that too? I opened my laptop and pulled up our home security camera app. We'd installed cameras 2 years ago, just the basic system. Front door, back door, driveway. I scrolled through the footage from the past 2 days. Emily's car arrived on Saturday afternoon at 2:17 p.m., about 8 hours after I'd left. She used her key to enter through the front door. At 2:43 p.m., Derek's car pulled up. They both went inside. At 3:11 p.m., Emily came out alone, looked around the street, then went back in. At 3:55 p.m., they both left. Emily's car remained. Derek drove away. Sunday morning at 9:04 a.m., Derek returned. He carried in several bags, what looked like groceries. He left at 9:52 a.m. No sign of Helen in any of the footage. Not getting mail. Not taking out trash. Not standing in the doorway to wave goodbye. Nothing. I called the Portland police. Non-emergency line. I need a wellness check on my wife. I'm out of town, and I haven't been able to reach her for 2 days. They took my information, said they'd send an officer by within the next few hours. I gave them Mrs. Rodriguez's number as a backup contact. Then I called the airline and changed my flight. The earliest I could get was Monday morning, 6 a.m. departure. I didn't sleep that night. At 11:23 p.m., my phone rang. Portland Police. Mr. Patterson? We sent an officer to your residence. Your daughter answered the door. She said your wife is sick with the flu and is sleeping. She showed the officer her bedroom door, said she was resting and didn't want to be disturbed. The officer asked to see her, and your daughter went in and came back out saying your wife confirmed she's okay but too tired for visitors. The officer couldn't force entry without cause, so they confirmed the wellness check as satisfied. Did the officer actually see my wife? Actually see her face? No, sir. But your daughter confirmed she spoke to her. My daughter is lying. Sir, without evidence of immediate danger, we can't. Then I'm flying home. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. I hung up. Then I called Emily. Dad, the police? Really? You sent the police to the house? Let me talk to Mom. She's upset that you didn't trust me. She doesn't want to talk to you right now. Put her on the phone, Emily. No. You've embarrassed me in front of the neighbors. Mrs. Rodriguez saw the police car. She's going to think something's wrong. Mom's fine. You'll see her when you get home. Then she hung up on me. I was on the first flight out Monday morning. Landed in Portland at 2:47 p.m. Drove straight home from the airport. Emily's car was in the driveway. I used my key to enter through the front door. The house was silent. Too silent. The TV wasn't on. The radio Helen always played in the kitchen wasn't on. No sounds of life at all. Helen? I called out. Emily emerged from the kitchen. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt, the kind of outfit she only wore when she was genuinely stressed. Dad, you're home early. Where's your mother? She's resting. Where? In her room. I walked past Emily toward our bedroom. The door was open. The bed was made. No, Helen. I turned back to Emily. She was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, watching me. Where is she? She needed some quiet time. The guest room. I walked to the guest room. Empty. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I went back to Emily. Where is your mother? Something flickered across her face then. Fear. Real, genuine fear. And I knew. I knew before she said anything. I knew before I heard the sound. Because right then, from somewhere in the house, I heard it. A faint banging. Rhythmic, distant, coming from below us. The basement. I ran to the basement door. It was closed. There was a new lock on it, a deadbolt that required a key from both sides. I turned back to Emily. Give me the key. Dad, I can explain. Give me the fucking key, Emily. She reached into her pocket and handed me a small silver key. Her hand was shaking. I unlocked the door and yanked it open. The basement stairs were dark. The light switch didn't work. I used my phone flashlight and went down. The banging got louder. Helen? Richard! Her voice was hoarse, desperate. Richard, I'm here! I'm here! She was at the far end of the basement, behind the old storage room door. That door also had a new lock. I ran back upstairs. Emily was still standing in the hallway. The other key. Now. She handed it to me without a word. I went back down, unlocked the storage room, and found my wife. Helen was sitting on the concrete floor, her back against the wall. She was still wearing her blue bathrobe. Her hair was matted, her face was gaunt, her lips were cracked and bleeding. There was a bucket in the corner that she'd been using as a toilet. There was an empty water bottle on the floor, and her eyes, when they met mine, were hollow. How long? I asked. What day is it? Monday. Monday afternoon. Saturday, she whispered. She locked me down here Saturday afternoon, right after you left. 5 days. My daughter had locked my wife in our basement storage room for 5 days. I picked Helen up. She was so light, lighter than she should have been. I carried her upstairs. Emily was in the living room now, sitting on the couch, crying. I ignored her. I took Helen straight to the car, buckled her in, and drove to the emergency room. At the hospital, they admitted Helen immediately. Severe dehydration, acute kidney stress, blood pressure dangerously low, hypothermia from the cold basement, muscle weakness from immobility. They said if I'd found her even 1 day later, we'd be looking at permanent kidney damage, possibly organ failure. The ER doctor was a woman in her 40s, Dr. Sarah Martinez. She asked me what happened. I told her everything. She nodded, made notes, and then said, I'm required by law to report suspected elder abuse. I'm calling Adult Protective Services and the police. Please do. 2 officers arrived within 30 minutes. I gave them my statement. I gave them my security camera login credentials. I gave them my house key and the basement key that Emily had given me. They left to investigate the scene. I sat with Helen in her hospital room. She'd been given fluids through an IV. Color was coming back to her face, but she wouldn't stop shaking. Why? I asked her. Why would Emily do this? Helen closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek. Money, she said. She needed money. She and Derek lost everything in some cryptocurrency investment. She asked me to ask you to loan them $200,000. I said no. I said we needed to talk about it as a family, that it was too much, that she needed to explain what happened first. She got angry. She said I didn't understand that they were going to lose their house, that Derek was getting threatening calls from the people he owed money to. When was this? Friday night. She came over for dinner, we argued. She left. Then, Saturday afternoon, she came back. She apologized. She said she understood. She said she wanted to spend time with me before you got back, wanted to make things right. I let her in. We were talking in the kitchen, and then I don't remember. I think she put something in my tea. When I woke up, I was in the basement. The door was locked. I screamed for hours. Nobody came. What about Derek? Was he part of this? He came on Sunday. I could hear them arguing upstairs. He said, This is insane. We need to let her out. Emily said, Not until Dad agrees to help us. Derek said, She could die down there. Emily said, She's fine. She has water. But Richard, the water ran out Sunday night. I've had nothing since then. Not a drop. I held her hand. I didn't trust myself to speak. Helen continued. When the police came, I heard them upstairs. I screamed as loud as I could. Emily went down and stood at the top of the basement stairs. She said, Mom, the police are here. If you make a sound, I'll make sure Dad never gets to see you again. Say you're fine and sleeping. Say it. I said it, Richard. I said it because I was terrified. I thought she might really hurt me. I thought if I cooperated, she'd let me out. But she didn't. She just locked the door again and went back upstairs. The police returned to the hospital around 9 p.m. They'd photographed the basement, collected evidence, taken the new locks as evidence. They'd also arrested Emily at the house. She was being held without bail, pending arraignment. Does Derek need to be arrested too? I asked. We're investigating his level of involvement. Based on your wife's statement, it sounds like he knew but didn't participate in the actual confinement. We'll determine charges after we interview him. They interviewed Helen for 2 hours. She told them everything. They recorded it. They were gentle with her, professional, thorough. When they left, Helen looked at me and said, "What do we do now?" "We make sure she pays for this," I said. Helen nodded. "Good." She was released from the hospital on Wednesday. The doctors wanted to keep her longer, but she insisted on going home. I'd had a cleaning service deep clean the basement, had the new locks removed, had the locksmith change all the door locks in the house. Emily's key no longer worked. On Thursday morning, I called my former law partner, Marcus Stone. Marcus is 68, mostly retired, but he still takes select cases. I told him everything. Richard, your own daughter. I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and I want to file a civil suit for damages. You're sure about this? Completely. It's going to destroy your family. Emily already did that. Marcus agreed to help coordinate the legal response. He connected me with a criminal attorney who specialized in elder abuse cases, Jennifer Walsh. I met with Jennifer on Friday. "Based on what you've described," Jennifer said, "we're looking at multiple charges. Criminal restraint, false imprisonment, elder abuse, endangerment, possibly attempted extortion, depending on how we can prove the financial motive. Oregon takes elder abuse very seriously, especially with the Parkinson's diagnosis. Your wife is classified as a vulnerable adult." What kind of sentence are we talking about? If convicted on all counts? She's looking at 10 to 15 years. Good. Jennifer raised an eyebrow. Most fathers don't respond that way. Most fathers' daughters don't try to kill their mothers. Emily's arraignment was the following Monday. She appeared via video from the jail. Her hair was unwashed, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. Derek was in the courtroom. He avoided my gaze. The judge set bail at $75,000. Emily and Derek couldn't make it. She remained in custody. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecutor's office built their case. They had my security footage showing Emily entering and leaving the house. They had Helen's medical records showing the severity of her dehydration and the timeline consistent with 5 days of deprivation. They had the locks removed from the basement doors as evidence of intentional imprisonment. They had Helen's testimony. They had Mrs. Rodriguez's statement that she hadn't seen Helen for days. Derek was not charged. The investigation showed he'd objected, had tried to convince Emily to release Helen, and had brought supplies to keep Helen alive longer, which actually made his involvement more complicated. He wasn't the perpetrator, but he wasn't innocent either. He'd enabled it by not calling the police. He filed for divorce from Emily 3 weeks after her arrest. Emily's lawyer pushed for a plea deal. The prosecutor offered 7 years in exchange for a guilty plea to false imprisonment and elder abuse. Jennifer Walsh asked me what I thought. "What does Helen think?" I asked. We sat down with Helen that evening. She was stronger now, physically recovered, but still having nightmares. She'd started seeing a therapist twice a week. "They want Emily to plead guilty to 7 years, I told her. "If she doesn't, we go to trial, and she could get 15. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "What she did to me. Richard, I thought I was going to die in that basement. I prayed for death by the 4th day because I was so thirsty. My own daughter did that to me. For money. What kind of person does that? So no deal? No deal. She needs to face what she did. She needs to stand in court and hear every detail of what she put me through. And she needs to understand there are real consequences." I called Jennifer. No deal. We go to trial. The trial was scheduled for 4 months later. During that time, I worked with Marcus on the civil suit. We filed against both Emily and Derek, seeking $500,000 in damages for medical costs, pain and suffering, emotional distress, and punitive damages. I also did something else. I updated our will. Emily was completely removed. Every asset we had would go to Helen's sister's children, our nephews. Emily would receive nothing. 0. Not the house, not the retirement accounts, not the family photos. Nothing. I had our estate attorney, David Moss, draft a letter explaining why. It was detailed, clinical, devastating. I wanted Emily to read it. I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd thrown away. The trial lasted 6 days. Helen testified on day 2. She was on the stand for 4 hours. She described every moment of those 5 days. The fear when she first woke up in the basement. The realization that Emily wasn't coming back. The thirst that became unbearable by the third day. The cold that seeped into her bones. The humiliation of using a bucket as a toilet. The moment she stopped believing anyone would find her. The jury was visibly emotional. One woman was crying. Two men looked furious. Emily sat at the defense table with her head down, refusing to look at her mother. Emily's lawyer tried to paint it as a mental health crisis, a moment of desperation, not a calculated act. They brought in a psychiatrist who testified that Emily was suffering from acute financial stress and had experienced a psychological break. They argued she hadn't intended to harm Helen, just to pressure me into helping them. Jennifer Walsh destroyed that defense in her closing argument. Emily Patterson is a Stanford graduate, an MBA from Wharton, a 34-year-old woman who has spent her entire adult life making calculated decisions. This was not a mental break. This was a choice. She chose to drug her mother. She chose to lock her in a basement. She chose to install locks that required keys from both sides so her mother couldn't escape. She chose to ignore her mother's screams. She chose to lie to the police. She chose to let her mother go without water for 3 days. She chose money over her mother's life. That is not mental illness. That is cruelty. That is criminal. And that deserves the maximum sentence. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. They found Emily guilty on all counts: false imprisonment, criminal restraint, elder abuse in the first degree, and reckless endangerment. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. Helen and I both gave victim impact statements. Vi kept mina short. Emily was my daughter. I raised her to value integrity, compassion, justice. I believed she understood those values. I was wrong. What she did to Helen wasn't just a crime. It was a betrayal of everything our family stood for. She made a choice to value money over her mother's life. That choice has consequences. I support the maximum sentence. She is no longer my daughter. Helen's was longer. She talked about the nightmares, the therapy, the way she now hesitated before entering any room in our house, the panic attacks she experienced in enclosed spaces. She talked about losing her daughter, about mourning someone who was still alive. She talked about forgiveness being impossible when there's no real remorse. Emily was given the opportunity to speak. She stood, her lawyer beside her, and said, "I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was desperate. I didn't mean for it to go so far. I love my mother. I never wanted to hurt her. I hope someday she can forgive me." The judge was a woman in her late 50s, Judge Patricia Hendricks. She'd presided over the entire trial with stern professionalism. When Emily finished, Judge Hendricks looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, "Miss Patterson, I have been a judge for 22 years. I have seen many crimes, many acts of cruelty, many people who claim they didn't mean it after they've been caught. Your statement today rings hollow. You didn't make a mistake. You didn't act in a moment of passion. You planned this. You installed locks. You drugged your mother. You let her suffer for 5 days. You lied to police. And according to the testimony, you showed no signs of remorse until you were arrested. That is not a mistake. That is a pattern of choices. You chose this, and I am choosing your consequences. I am sentencing you to 14 years in prison with no possibility of parole before 10 years served. I am also ordering you to pay full restitution for all medical costs and legal fees associated with this case. You will have no contact with the victims for the duration of your sentence and beyond, unless they initiate it, which, based on their testimony, I suspect they will not." Emily collapsed. Her lawyer caught her. She was sobbing, repeating, "No, no, no," over and over. Helen reached for my hand. Her grip was strong. We won the civil suit 3 months later. The jury awarded us $450,000. Emily had no assets, but the judgment would follow her for the rest of her life. Every dollar she ever earned would be garnished. She'd be paying for what she did for decades. Derek settled out of court for $75,000, which he paid immediately. He moved to California shortly after. I heard he started working for a different tech company, using his middle name professionally to avoid the association with the case. It's been 8 months now since that Thursday night when I came home. Helen has recovered physically. The doctors say her kidneys are functioning normally. Her Parkinson's is stable. She's still in therapy, still working through the trauma, but she's stronger every day. We don't talk about Emily. We removed every photo of her from the house. We don't discuss her, don't acknowledge her birthday, don't mention her name. It's like she never existed. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret prosecuting my own daughter. If I regret the harshness of the sentence. If I regret cutting her out completely. I don't, because here's what I know. Emily didn't make a mistake. She didn't have a momentary lapse in judgment. She looked at her mother, a woman with a degenerative disease, a woman who'd loved her unconditionally for 34 years, and she decided that woman's life was worth less than $200,000. She calculated that decision. She executed it methodically. She watched her mother suffer and did nothing. That's not my daughter. That's not the person I raised. That person doesn't deserve my mercy, my forgiveness, or my love. I visit Helen's hospital room sometimes. In my mind, I see her sitting on that concrete floor, alone in the dark, dying of thirst, wondering if anyone would find her in time. I see her terror. I see her helplessness. And then I think about Emily sitting in her cell, wearing an orange jumpsuit, living with the consequences of her choices, and I feel nothing but satisfaction. People think that makes me cold. Maybe it does. But I spent 35 years as an attorney. I know what justice looks like. This is justice. Helen and I are leaving for Italy next month. It's a trip we'd always planned, but never taken. We're taking it now. We're going to Venice, to Florence, to Rome. We're going to eat good food and drink good wine and walk through museums and watch sunsets over the Mediterranean. We're going to live the life we earned, the life we built, without the shadow of betrayal hanging over us. And Emily will remain in prison, exactly where she belongs. That's my story. That's how my daughter destroyed our family over cryptocurrency losses and greed. That's how I made sure she paid for every single moment of my wife's suffering. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Family isn't sacred just because it's family. Blood doesn't excuse cruelty. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is hold people accountable for their actions, no matter how much it hurts. I was a father for 34 years. Now I'm just a husband protecting his wife from the person who tried to kill her. And I sleep just fine at night.